The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the nervous energy of 1,000 different species, each representing worlds that had taken millennia to master faster than light travel. Ambassador Zyxthera of the Vorthak Empire adjusted her crystalline breathing apparatus as she watched the latest planetary assessment report scroll across her neural interface. The numbers were troubling, but not in the way the Council had expected. The humans have done what with our quantum disintegration technology? Council Speaker Mordun's voice carried the weight of disbelief, his forearms gesturing wildly as holographic displays showed impossible readings from the Sol system. Zyxthera's mandibles clicked in what her species considered a nervous laugh. According to our monitoring stations, they've somehow converted the molecular disintegration field generators into what they call entertainment devices. She paused, allowing her words to sink into the minds of beings who had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. They're using them for something called laser tag. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages, translation devices working overtime to keep up with the outrage. The quantum disintegration technology had been the Vorthak Empire's most closely guarded secret for over 3,000 years. It could reduce entire starships to their constituent atoms in seconds, leaving nothing but scattered particles drifting in the void of space. When the Council had reluctantly decided to share this technology with humanity as part of their defensive preparations against the approaching devourers, they had expected the humans to treat it with the reverence it deserved. They had not expected humans to strap smaller versions to their backs and run around abandoned warehouses, shooting colored beams at each other while laughing. "This is preposterous," rumbled General Kethmore of the Draknari warclans, his scaled hide shifting through various shades of orange in agitation. "We gave them the power to split matter at the quantum level, and they've turned it into a game? Do they not understand the implications of what we shared?" Senior technician Veltar, whose species had contributed the targeting matrices for the disintegration arrays, was frantically manipulating holographic data streams with her 6 delicate appendages. "The modifications they've made are extraordinary. They've somehow managed to create a feedback loop that prevents actual molecular breakdown while maintaining the quantum field integrity. The precision required for such modification should be impossible for a species that only achieved faster than light travel 2 decades ago." Ambassador Zyxthera found herself oddly fascinated rather than outraged. Her people had always prided themselves on their analytical approach to problems, and this particular problem was unlike anything in their extensive databases. "Show us the detailed reports, Veltar. I want to understand exactly what the humans have accomplished." The central holographic display shifted, showing detailed schematics of the modified disintegration devices. Where the original technology required massive power cores and sophisticated containment fields, the human versions were compact, efficient, and somehow completely safe despite utilizing the same fundamental quantum principles. "They call them phasers," Veltar continued, her voice carrying a note of reluctant admiration. "The energy output has been reduced by a factor of 10 million, but the targeting accuracy has actually improved. They've also managed to create variable settings that can stun, disable, or at maximum power, create what they term really impressive light shows." "Light shows," repeated Council Speaker Mordun, his voice flat with disbelief. "They've taken technology capable of destroying planets and turned it into light shows. What the assembled aliens didn't know, and what their monitoring systems couldn't detect, was that the humans had made these modifications within the first week of receiving the technology." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's leading quantum physicist, had taken one look at the alien disintegration technology and immediately seen its potential for non-destructive applications. "The problem with this design," she had told her team at the Luna Research Facility, "is that it's ridiculously overpowered for most practical applications. It's like using a nuclear reactor to power a flashlight. But if we can dial down the quantum resonance frequency and create a stable feedback loop." Her fingers had danced across holographic interfaces as she spoke, her mind already racing ahead to the possibilities. The breakthrough had come when her colleague, Dr. James Kim, had jokingly suggested they should make toy versions for his kids. "Imagine the birthday parties," he had laughed. "Little Timmy with a quantum disintegrator. What could go wrong?" But Dr. Rodriguez had paused, her dark eyes lighting up with the kind of inspiration that had driven human innovation for millennia. "Actually, James, what could go right?" Within 3 days, they had their first prototype. Within a week, they had perfected the design. Within 2 weeks, the first commercial quantum tag facilities were opening in major cities across Earth and her colonies. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the debate was reaching new levels of intensity. The hegemony of Tal Shura had contributed their advanced targeting computers to the weapons package, technology that had taken them 5 centuries to develop. Reports indicated that humans had not only reverse-engineered these systems but had somehow made them more efficient. "They've created predictive targeting algorithms," reported technician Kalmeth, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "The accuracy improvement is approximately 300% over our original designs. They're using quantum probability calculations to predict target movement patterns before the targets themselves are aware of their intentions to move." "How is that possible?" demanded General Kethmore. "Our greatest military minds have been working on predictive targeting for millennia." According to their research papers, which they've made freely available on something called the Internet, they approached the problem from what they call a gaming perspective, Kalmeth explained. They treated it like a puzzle to be solved rather than a military challenge to be conquered. Their methodology is unconventional. Ambassador ZYX Thera was beginning to see a pattern emerging, one that both fascinated and concerned her. "Show us more of their modifications. What else have they done with our contributions?" The holographic display shifted again, this time showing the defensive shield technology that the Crystalline Collective had contributed. The original design created impenetrable barriers capable of withstanding direct hits from antimatter weapons. The human version appeared to be installed in every major sports stadium across human space. "They're using molecular shield generators for sporting events," asked Collective Representative Shardal, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated extreme confusion. "Not just sporting events," Veltar continued, her voice gaining strength as she delved deeper into the data. "They've created what they call extreme sports. Humans are using our most advanced defensive technology to enable themselves to jump off cliffs, dive into active volcanoes, and surf solar flares. They've made the shields portable and somehow managed to make them fashion accessories." The display now showed humans wearing what appeared to be jewelry that could deflect energy weapons capable of cracking moons. They were using this technology to safely swim through gas giant atmospheres and race through asteroid fields at impossible speeds. "This is madness," whispered Council Speaker Mordun. "They're treating our greatest technological achievements like toys." But, even as he spoke, he couldn't deny what the data was showing. Human innovation was proceeding at an unprecedented rate. Technologies that had taken the various alien species centuries or millennia to develop were being improved, modified, and repurposed by humans in a matter of days or weeks. "There's more," Veltar said quietly. "They've begun combining our technologies in ways we never considered." The display shifted to show something that made every being in the chamber fall silent. It was a human child, no more than 10 standard years old, holding what appeared to be a miniature version of a Draknari battlecruiser's main weapon. But, instead of destruction, the device was creating elaborate sculptures from raw space dust, building delicate crystal formations that would have been considered masterpieces by any artistic standard in the galaxy. "They've turned our antimatter projection cannons into art supplies," General Kethmore said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Children are using technology that could crack planets to make sculptures." Ambassador ZYX Thera felt something she had never experienced before watching humans through their monitoring systems. It wasn't quite admiration, but it wasn't fear either. It was a kind of wonder at a species that could look at the most destructive technologies in the galaxy and ask not how can we kill our enemies, but what else could this do? "Council Speaker," she said, rising from her bioorganic seat, "I believe we may have made an error in our assessment of humanity." "An error?" Mordun's voice carried dangerous undertones. "We've given them the power to destroy civilizations, and they're playing with it." "No," ZYX Thera replied, her mandibles clicking in what was now definitely not nervousness but something approaching excitement. "We've given them the power to destroy civilizations, and they've chosen to create instead. Do you understand what this means?" The chamber fell silent as the implications began to sink in. Every species represented in the council had reached their technological peaks through conflict, through the necessity of warfare and defense. They had created their most advanced technologies to kill, to conquer, or to survive against those who would do the same to them. Humanity had taken those same technologies and asked an entirely different question: What if we could use this to make life better? The Devourers are still coming, General Kethmore pointed out, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. These games and art projects won't stop them when they arrive. Won't they? ZYX Thera asked. Veltar, show us the power output readings from human space. The display changed once more, showing energy signatures from across the Sol system and human colonies. The readings were staggering. The combined output from what humans called entertainment and art installations was generating power levels that rivaled the defensive grids of major galactic civilizations. They're not just playing, Veltar whispered, understanding dawning in her voice. Every game facility, every art installation, every sporting venue, they're all connected. They've created a distributed defense network that spans their entire civilization, and they've disguised it as entertainment. The truth was even more impressive than the aliens realized. While children played quantum tag and artists shaped matter with antimatter tools, human engineers had been working around the clock to integrate every modification, every improvement, into a vast network that could be activated at a moment's notice. The toys were actually sophisticated weapons systems, ready to defend human space with capabilities that exceeded anything the original alien technologies had been designed for. But, perhaps most remarkably, this had not been a deliberate deception. Human nature had simply taken the alien gifts and asked the question that defined their species: how can we make this better, more fun, and more useful for everyone? In doing so, they had accomplished something that no other species in the galaxy had ever achieved. They had turned tools of war into instruments of joy, and, in the process, they had made them more powerful than their creators had ever imagined possible. The Devourers were indeed coming, but, when they arrived, they would find not a species cowering behind alien-gifted weapons, but a civilization that had transformed those weapons into something entirely new. They would find humans who had turned the galaxy's most lethal technologies into the foundation of their culture, their art, and their play. And they would discover, far too late, that a species capable of turning weapons into toys was also capable of turning those toys back into weapons that their enemies could never have prepared for. The Galactic Council was beginning to understand that they had not given humanity their most lethal technology. They had given humanity the opportunity to create something far more dangerous than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had given them the chance to innovate. 3 months after the initial reports reached the Galactic Council, Ambassador ZYX Thera found herself aboard a Vorthak diplomatic vessel, heading toward the Sol system on what the Council had designated as an urgent investigative mission. The truth was simpler: the alien governments were terrified of what humanity might do next. The reports coming from human space had moved beyond the merely incomprehensible into the realm of the impossible. Humans weren't just modifying alien technology anymore, they were combining it in ways that violated several fundamental laws of physics, or at least what the galaxy had always believed to be fundamental laws. Approach vector established, announced Captain Morthax from the bridge, his voice carrying the tension that had infected every member of the diplomatic mission. Human space traffic control is unusual. ZYX Thera moved to the observation deck to see what he meant. Where she had expected to find the typical defensive perimeter of any civilized system, she instead found what appeared to be an enormous playground. Ships of every conceivable design were moving through elaborate three-dimensional patterns that looked more like an intricate dance than any defensive formation she had ever studied. "What are they doing?" asked Dr. Kelnai, the mission's scientific advisor, her bioluminescent patches flickering with confusion. "According to their communications, they're having fun," Captain Morthax replied. "They've invited us to participate in something called synchronized hyperspace ballet while we wait for clearance to approach Earth." Through the viewport, ZYX Thera watched as massive cargo haulers performed impossible pirouettes alongside tiny personal craft, all of them moving in perfect harmony despite the fact that such coordination should have required computational power that exceeded what most planetary governments possessed. "How are they calculating the trajectories?" Dr. Kelnai whispered, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "The quantum mathematics alone should require." "According to the data we're receiving," interrupted Navigator Velshun, "they're not calculating anything. The entire formation is being coordinated by what they call volunteers using gaming interfaces from across their civilization." The implications of this statement took several moments to sink in. Humans were using entertainment systems to coordinate space traffic with precision that exceeded military formation flying. They were treating the operation of their entire transportation network as a game, and somehow achieving results that surpassed anything the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had managed. "Request permission to dock at Luna Station," Captain Morthax announced over the communication system. The reply came back immediately in accented but fluent galactic standard: "Permission granted, honored guests. We've prepared a special welcome for you. Please don't be alarmed by the fireworks." Before anyone could ask what fireworks meant in this context, space around them exploded in brilliant displays of colored light. But these weren't simple chemical explosions. The analysis computers identified the energy signatures as controlled antimatter annihilation events, precisely shaped and timed to create vast sculptures of light that told the story of first contact between humanity and the galaxy. "They're using antimatter warheads as celebratory displays," Dr. Kelnai said faintly. "They're detonating weapons that could destroy moons just to welcome visitors." But even as she spoke, ZYX Thera noticed something else in the readings. The antimatter celebrations weren't random. Every detonation was precisely calculated not just for visual effect, but to clean up space debris, adjust the orbits of minor asteroids, and even provide thrust assistance to ships that needed course corrections. The humans had turned weapons of mass destruction into a comprehensive space management system disguised as a party. Luna Station itself defied every expectation ZYX Thera had formed about human capabilities. The structure was massive, easily the size of a small moon, but instead of the cold, functional architecture she expected from a species so new to galactic technology, she found herself looking at what could only be described as a work of art. The station's hull was composed of the same quantum crystallized matter that the collective used for their most sacred temples, but humans had somehow made it flow and shift like living tissue. Patterns of light raced across its surface in displays that were both beautiful and functional, providing real-time status updates about everything from atmospheric composition to the emotional state of the beings aboard. How did they get crystalline collective technology to behave like a biological system? Dr. Kelnai asked as their ship was guided into a docking bay that reconfigured itself around them like a living organism. "More importantly," added Navigator Velshun, "how are they growing it? The energy requirements to maintain that level of quantum coherence across such a large structure should be impossible," finished Captain Morthax. "I know. Add it to the list." As they disembarked, ZYX Thera found herself greeted by a human who appeared to be wearing ceremonial armor made from Draknari battle plating, but the fierce war metal had been modified to display gentle pastoral scenes that shifted and changed as she watched. It was like seeing a predator's claws transformed into a poet's pen. "Welcome to Luna Station," the human said, extending a hand in the peculiar human gesture of greeting. "I'm Director Sarah Chen, and we're absolutely thrilled to have representatives from the council here. We have so much to show you." Director Chen's enthusiasm was infectious, but also slightly overwhelming. As they were led through corridors that somehow managed to feel both spacious and intimate, ZYX Thera noticed that every surface was alive with activity. What she had initially taken for decorative patterns were actually functional interfaces that humans were casually interacting with as they went about their daily business. "The station is run by volunteers?" she asked, noticing that none of the humans they passed seemed to be wearing any kind of uniform or rank insignia. "Mostly," Director Chen replied cheerfully. "We've found that people are naturally good at things they enjoy doing, so we just made running the station as enjoyable as possible. The life support systems are managed by people who like puzzle games, navigation is handled by folks who enjoy 3D design challenges, and security is run by our competitive gaming community." "Your security is managed by game players?" Captain Morthax asked, his forearms unconsciously moving to defensive positions. "Oh yes," Chen said, completely missing the alarm in his voice. "They're incredibly good at pattern recognition and threat assessment. Plus, they think of security challenges as really interesting multiplayer games. We haven't had a single security breach since we opened the station to the public." As if to demonstrate her point, they passed a group of humans who appeared to be playing some kind of complex holographic game. The display showed what looked like a real-time map of local space, with various objects moving through it in complex patterns. "What are they doing?" Dr. Kelnai asked. "Oh, that's just the daily asteroid routing game," Chen explained. "We get a lot of space rocks coming through the system, and rather than just blasting them or redirecting them mechanically, we let people compete to find the most creative and efficient ways to turn them into useful materials. Today's winner gets to name a small moon. The aliens exchanged glances. Humans were treating asteroid management as a competitive sport with stellar real estate as prizes. They were led to what Director Chen called the Innovation Labs, though the name hardly prepared them for what they found. The space was enormous, filled with what appeared to be humans of all ages working on projects that ranged from the whimsical to the impossible. In one corner, a group of children were using handheld devices that readings indicated were modified planet cracker mining tools, but, instead of breaking worlds apart, they were using them to assemble elaborate crystal gardens that grew as they watched. The kids love working with high-energy crystallization, Chen explained as they watched a girl who couldn't have been more than 12 use technology capable of restructuring matter at the molecular level to grow a flower that appeared to be made of living light. They have such wonderful imaginations for what things could become. In another area, teenagers were racing vehicles that appeared to violate several laws of physics, including causality. The racecourse included loops through hyperspace, sections that moved backward through time, and obstacles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. How are they moving through time? Dr. Kelnai asked faintly. Oh, that's just the temporal displacement technology the hegemony shared with us, Chen said casually. We realized that if you reverse the polarity and add some quantum resonance buffers, you can create localized time loops. The kids use it for racing, but our historians love it for observational research. Nothing like watching the actual building of the pyramids for historical accuracy. You're using time travel technology for educational purposes, Captain Morthax said slowly. And, for the most amazing racing leagues in the galaxy, Chen added proudly. The championship races are next week if you'd like to attend. Fair warning though, the temporal mechanics can be a bit disorienting for first-time viewers. As they continued through the labs, ZYX began to notice a pattern in how humans approached technology. Every alien gift was examined not just for what it could do, but for what it could become. Humans seemed incapable of looking at any device without immediately asking how it could be improved, modified, or repurposed. They passed a workshop where adult humans were collaborating with AI systems to design what appeared to be architectural projects on a massive scale. The holographic display showed structures that span entire star systems, but, instead of the military installations or resource extraction facilities she expected, these were vast artistic projects that served as both functional habitats and expressions of creative vision. We're planning some renovations to the Sol system, Chen explained when she noticed their interest. The asteroid belt has such potential for sculpture, and we think we can improve the orbital mechanics of the outer planets while we're at it. Make them more efficient and more beautiful at the same time. You're planning to restructure your entire star system for artistic purposes? ZYX asked. Well, artistic and practical, Chen clarified. There's no reason why functional can't also be beautiful. We figure if we're going to live here, we might as well make it as pleasant as possible. The most astonishing discovery came when they reached what Chen called the Integration Center. Here, humans were working on projects that combined technologies from multiple alien species in ways that their creators had never imagined. The centerpiece was a device that appeared to be part Vorthack disintegration array, part crystal and collective matter forge, part Draknari tactical computer, and part hegemony temporal manipulator. But, instead of creating weapons or defenses, it was producing something that took ZYX several moments to identify. Are you making stars? She asked. Small ones, Chen replied proudly. We figured out that if you combine the technologies just right, you can create stable fusion reactions in controlled environments. We're using them for neighborhood lighting projects and industrial applications. Much more efficient than traditional power generation, and they make the most wonderful aurora effects. Dr. Kelnai was running rapid calculations on her portable computer. The energy output from just this one device, you could power entire civilizations. That's the plan, Chen said. We're working on installing these in every human community, and we've already started offering them to our neighbors. The Centauri colonies placed an order for 100 units last week. The aliens were beginning to understand that humanity's approach to technology was fundamentally different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where other species saw tools with specific purposes, humans saw components that could be endlessly recombined and improved upon. But the true scope of human innovation became clear when Director Chen led them to the observation deck overlooking Earth itself. The planet below had been transformed in the months since the alien technologies had been shared. What had once been a mostly blue and green world was now alive with patterns of light and energy that were visible even from space. "We've been busy," Chen said with obvious pride. "Every city, every town, every settlement has become part of an integrated network. We're not just using your technologies, we've made them into the foundation of a completely new kind of civilization." Through enhanced viewers, they could see the details of what humanity had accomplished. Cities were connected by streams of energy that carried both power and information. Transportation systems moved people and goods through methods that seemed to blend teleportation, time manipulation, and matter conversion into seamless networks that operated at speeds that should have torn the planet apart. "How are you managing the quantum interference?" Dr. Kelnai asked. "Operating this many high-energy systems in such proximity should create resonance cascades that would." "Oh, we solved that problem in the first week," Chen said dismissively. "It turns out that if you synchronize all the quantum fields and treat them like a vast musical instrument, the interference patterns actually enhance the efficiency rather than destroying it. The whole planet is basically singing now, and the song is the operating system for our entire civilization." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not only mastered alien technologies but had integrated them into something entirely new. They had created a planetary civilization that operated like a single, vast, impossibly complex organism, with every human settlement as a specialized organ contributing to the whole. "The Devourers," Captain Morthax said suddenly. "What about the Devourers? All of this integration, this complexity, won't it make you more vulnerable when they arrive?" Director Chen's smile took on a quality that ZYX found oddly unsettling. "Oh, we're looking forward to meeting the Devourers," she said. "We have so many questions about their technology. And we've prepared such wonderful welcoming gifts for them." The way she said gifts made ZYX wonder if humanity's transformation of weapons into toys might prove to be reversible when the situation called for it. Looking down at the planet below, alive with energies that no other civilization had ever imagined could coexist, she began to suspect that the Devourers might be in for the surprise of their very long existence. Humanity had taken the galaxy's most lethal technologies and made them into the building blocks of something unprecedented, a civilization based not on conflict or survival, but on the radical idea that existence could be joyful, creative, and beautiful. The question now was whether that same creativity and joy could become the most effective defense the galaxy had ever seen. Played with it like a toy the day the Devourers arrived, humanity was having a party. Admiral Carthal of the Devourer fleet had consumed the technologies and life forces of 17 different galactic civilizations. Each victory had followed the same pattern: his scouts would identify the target civilization's most advanced defensive technologies, his fleet would adapt to counter them, and then, the systematic consumption would begin. The pattern had never failed. Until today. "Admiral," reported Tactical Officer Kamar from his biomechanical interface chair, "the human system is unusual." Through the bridge's neural link, Admiral Carthal shared his subordinates' confusion. Where they had expected to find a defensive perimeter around the Sol system, they found what appeared to be a massive celebration. Thousands of ships were moving in complex patterns that created vast displays of light and energy across space itself. "Are they greeting us?" asked Navigation Officer Velcron, his scarred face twisted with confusion. In their long history of conquest, no species had ever welcomed their arrival. "Analysis indicates that this display began 3 solar hours before our emergence from hyperspace," Sycamore reported. "They could not have known we were coming." Admiral Carthal extended his consciousness through the ship's sensory web, studying the human activities more closely. What he found defied his understanding of warfare, technology, or basic survival instincts. The humans were using technologies that his sensors identified as derived from various Council species' most advanced weapons, but they had been modified beyond recognition. "Show me the weapon signatures," he commanded. The tactical display filled with energy readings that made even the Admiral's seasoned mind reel. The humans were casually deploying power levels that exceeded what most civilizations used for planetary defense, but instead of creating weapons, they were creating art. "Those are modified Vorthack disintegration arrays," Sycamore whispered, his voice carrying notes of disbelief. But, the energy signatures, they're not destroying matter, they're restructuring it in real time. As they watched, the human ships used planet-cracking weapons to sculpt temporary asteroids into elaborate sculptures that told stories of human achievement and dreams. Each creation lasted only minutes before being reformed into something new, more beautiful, and more impossible than the last. They're using antimatter containment technology to create flowers? Velcron asked, studying readings from what appeared to be a garden floating in hard vacuum. Flowers made of controlled fusion reactions? Power levels, Admiral Carthal commanded, trying to maintain his composure. What are the total energy outputs we're detecting? The silence that followed his question stretched for long moments before Esikemar finally answered. Admiral, the combined energy output from what the humans appear to consider entertainment exceeds the defensive capacity of any 3 civilizations we have previously encountered. The implications began to sink in. The Admiral had studied the Council species extensively before planning this invasion. He knew their individual technological capabilities, their weapons, their defenses. But, humanity appeared to be using those same technologies at power levels that shouldn't have been possible, for purposes that shouldn't have worked, with casual ease that suggested this was merely their normal day-to-day operation. Send a probe, he ordered. I want detailed scans of their defensive installations. The probe launched, streaking toward the inner system at near-light speed. Its sophisticated sensors were designed to penetrate any stealth technology the galaxy had ever developed, to catalog weapons and defenses, to identify the command structures that would need to be eliminated first. What it found instead made Admiral Carthal question not just his strategy, but his understanding of reality itself. Admiral Isikemar's voice was strained. The probe cannot identify any defensive installations. What do you mean? Are they cloaked? No, sir. I mean there are no dedicated defensive installations. Everything is dual purpose. Or triple purpose. Or... Sycamore paused, his biomechanical interface overheating as it tried to process the data. Sir, I don't think the humans distinguish between offense, defense, and entertainment. Every installation appears to serve all 3 purposes simultaneously. The probe's data painted a picture of a civilization that had somehow transcended the basic categories that defined galactic technology. Playgrounds that could reconfigure themselves into fortress walls at a moment's notice. Art installations that generated defensive fields powerful enough to stop antimatter bombardment. Traffic control systems that could coordinate defensive fleets with precision that exceeded anything the galaxy's finest military minds had achieved. Their children's toys are reading as Class 9 weapons, Velcron reported, his voice barely above a whisper. That's impossible, Admiral Carthal replied, but, even as he spoke, he was studying the probe data himself. Human children were indeed playing with devices that contained the fundamental technologies of galactic warfare, but, somehow these devices were completely safe, completely benign, unless someone tries to attack the children, he finished aloud, understanding beginning to dawn. The toys are protective systems disguised as entertainment. The probe data continued streaming in, and, with each new reading, Admiral Carthal's confidence in victory diminished. This was not a civilization preparing for war. This was a civilization that had made war preparation so integral to their daily existence that they no longer needed to think about it. Sir, Esikemar announced, we're being hailed. Put them through. The holographic display activated, showing a human female who appeared to be in early middle age by their species standards. She was smiling in a way that seemed genuinely welcoming, which only made the Admiral more suspicious. Greetings, she said cheerfully. I'm Director Sarah Chen of Luna Station. We've been looking forward to meeting you. On behalf of all humanity, welcome to the Sol System. Admiral Carthal had learned 17 different languages in the process of conquering 17 civilizations, but he had never been welcomed to an invasion before. The experience was profoundly disorienting. I am Admiral Carthal of the Devourer Fleet, he replied, falling back on familiar protocols. We have come to claim your technologies and resources for our own. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Director Chen's expression shifted to one of polite confusion. Oh my, she said. I think there's been a misunderstanding. You're not here to invade us, are you? We thought you were here for the Galactic Technology Exchange. The what? The technology exchange. We sent invitations to all the major civilizations. We've made some really interesting improvements to the technologies the Council shared with us, and we wanted to share them back. Surely you didn't travel all this way just to fight? The Admiral felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of conquest: uncertainty. You wish to share your technologies? Why? Chen's smile brightened. Why not? We've learned so much from what the Council gave us, and we've discovered that most problems become much easier to solve when everyone works together. Fighting is just so inefficient, don't you think? Before Admiral Carthal could respond, his tactical officer was speaking urgently into his neural link. Admiral, we're receiving detailed technical specifications. They're broadcasting the complete schematics for their modified technologies on open channels. It's a trap, Admiral Carthal declared, but even as he spoke, he was reviewing the incoming data. The human modifications to Council technologies were indeed impressive, but what struck him most was the complete absence of any attempt at secrecy or security. They were freely sharing information that most civilizations would guard with their lives. Oh no, Shin said, apparently hearing his comment through the communication link. Not a trap at all. Here, let me show you what we've been working on. The space around the Devourer fleet suddenly filled with displays that made their earlier observations pale in comparison. Entire sections of the human defensive network became visible, not because the humans had dropped their stealth systems, but because they didn't have stealth systems. They had no need for them. What Admiral Carthal saw defied every principle of military strategy he had learned. The human defense network was completely open, completely visible, and completely overwhelming. Every civilian installation was simultaneously a weapons platform, a power generator, a manufacturing facility, and a work of art. You see, Shin continued, we realized that the best defense isn't hiding what you have, but making what you have so useful and beautiful that no one would want to destroy it. Would you really want to attack a civilization that could offer you wonders beyond imagination? To demonstrate her point, the humans activated what they called their welcome protocol. Space around the Devourer fleet transformed into a vast gallery of impossible beauty. Controlled supernovas painted images across light years of space. Gravitational waves were sculpted into music that could be heard through the quantum foam of reality itself. Time itself was bent into shapes that told the story of every civilization the humans had learned from, including accurate historical recreations of the Devourer's own past glories. How do you know our history? Admiral Carthal asked, his voice tight with something that might have been fear. Oh, we've been studying galactic history as a hobby, Shen replied. Time travel technology is wonderful for research, and we wanted to understand everyone we might meet. Your people accomplished some truly remarkable things before you started conquering other civilizations. We particularly admired your early poetry. The Admiral felt the world shift beneath him. Humanity knew about their poetry. The cultural achievements that the Devourers had abandoned eons ago in favor of conquest and consumption, achievements that even they had forgotten, were being celebrated by humans who had learned of them through casual historical research. Why, he asked, the question coming out more like a plea than a demand. Because beauty matters, Shen said simply. Because understanding each other makes us all stronger. Because we've found that the best way to solve any problem is to ask not how do we defeat this, but how do we make this wonderful? Around them, the human demonstration continued. Ships that could have destroyed solar systems were instead creating them, using controlled stellar formation to birth new stars that would warm worlds for billions of years. Weapons that could crack planets were growing new planets from space dust and stellar debris. We'd love to show you more, Shin continued, but we understand that you might need time to think. You're welcome to stay as long as you like. We've prepared quarters for your fleet if you'd like to experience our modifications to hegemony time compression technology. Or if you prefer, we can show you how we've improved on Vorthack recreation systems. The quantum beach simulations are particularly popular. Admiral Carthal realized that at some point during the conversation, his weapons systems had powered down. He couldn't remember giving that order, but somehow it had felt like the natural thing to do. The idea of firing on the beings who were offering him quantum beach simulations seemed not just cruel, but genuinely foolish. What would happen, he asked slowly, if we decided to attack anyway? Chen's expression grew thoughtful. Well, she said, we'd defend ourselves, of course. But, we'd really rather not. Fighting damages things, and we've built such beautiful things. Plus, we have so many questions about your technology. Your biomechanical integration systems are fascinating, and we think we might be able to help you improve them. The Admiral looked around his bridge, noting for the first time how crude their integration technology seemed compared to what he was seeing from humanity. The painful neural interfaces that had seemed like pinnacles of advancement now appeared primitive next to human systems that seemed to blend seamlessly with their users' natural capabilities. You think you can improve our technology? He asked. Oh yes, Chen said enthusiastically. We've been working on biological enhancement systems since we got started with this whole technological integration project. The trick is making the technology serve the being rather than the other way around. We could show you, if you'd like. No obligation, of course. For the first time in centuries, Admiral Carthal found himself genuinely curious about something other than conquest. Show me, he said. What followed was the most comprehensive surrender in galactic history, though it wasn't called a surrender. The humans called it collaborative research, and somehow that made all the difference. Within hours, Devourer ships were docking with human facilities, not as conquerors but as guests participating in the most advanced technology exchange the galaxy had ever seen. The biomechanical integration improvements alone revolutionized Devourer society. The painful neural links that had turned their people into living components of their war machines were replaced with symbiotic systems that enhanced rather than replaced their natural abilities. For the first time in eons, the Devourers remembered what it felt like to be truly alive. But the real transformation came when the humans asked the question that changed everything: what did your people dream of before you started conquering? The Devourers had forgotten their dreams so completely that rediscovering them became a civilization-wide obsession. With human help, they began rebuilding not their empire, but their culture. The poetry that humanity had found in history became the foundation for new artistic movements. The scientific curiosity that had once driven their innovation was rekindled through collaboration with human researchers. Within 6 months, the most feared invasion fleet in galactic history had become the galaxy's most enthusiastic cultural exchange program. The Galactic Council, when they finally received Admiral Carthal's report, initially refused to believe it. A species that had conquered 17 civilizations had been defeated by being offered friendship, artistic collaboration, and technological improvement. It's impossible, declared Council Speaker Mordun. You cannot end a war with a welcome party. With respect, Council Speaker Admiral Carthal replied, his former title replaced by his new position as Director of Devourer Human Cultural Integration. You can, and we did. We came expecting to fight a civilization armed with your technologies. Instead, we found a civilization that had transformed your technologies into something that made fighting pointless. Pointless? General Kethmore demanded. They had no defenses. They had no need for defenses, Carthal corrected. Every system they built was simultaneously more powerful than anything we could deploy and more beautiful than anything we could imagine destroying. How do you attack a species that greets your invasion fleet by offering to help you rediscover your own culture? The truth was spreading throughout the galaxy now, carried by trading ships, diplomatic vessels, and simple curiosity. Humanity had not just mastered the technologies they had been given. They had transcended the need for them by transforming them into something entirely new. They had taken tools of war and made them into instruments of creation. They had taken technologies designed to divide and conquer and made them into systems that connected and unified. They had taken the galaxy's most lethal weapons and turned them into toys, and, in doing so, they had created something more powerful than any weapon ever imagined. They had created a civilization based on the radical idea that existence should be joyful. And joy, as it turned out, was the most irresistible force in the universe.